on this rap-ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list. Hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and plan to getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dude is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah. I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. X-ray season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that, hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it. I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. Average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on to the hearse. Party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it. I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping, but I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building, my whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
Grand Rising and good morning to everybody out there. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday. Want to extend a very joyful, peaceful, and enlightened happy Tuesday to all of y'all out there. So glad to be here always with my co-host with the most, my guy, Big O. What up, Big O?
Trey Holiday.
Hey, what's going on?
What's happening? How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm glad the sun has come out a little bit, melting a little bit more of that snow. Be careful of that black ice.
I was about
to
say, you're telling people to slow it down, right?
Yeah, I mean, on my way here, I definitely had to do so. I think there was a lot of cars that were being cautious. Black ice is real.
Yes, it is real. And today, so it's going to be interesting here. We're actually waiting. You see me looking this way. I'm looking at the monitors on the wall. We're waiting for them to start over there at City Hall. It's a quick ceremonial signing in of Mayor Harrell. And then he's also going to address the city and taking some questions from the media. And, of course, we're here in the Morning Update Show. But I was able to email a question over there. So we'll see if it makes it or not. So just letting you guys know, we might be cutting away to that and then kind of coming back and forth and everything else. But so let me move swiftly because I got something very important to discuss here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I want to remind you that right now is the perfect opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. Tag and share the stream with people you feel would appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Want to give a big shout out to our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald and KBCS 91.3 over at Bellevue College. Reminding everybody that you can listen to the Morning Update Show anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. We don't have SoundCloud on the screen today, but we'll put it over there in the links. But you can check us out on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network. Also, a daily reminder from over at Public Health Seattle, King County, that if you need to get vaccinated, if you need to get boosted or anything else, actually, looks like they're getting ready to start here in a second. Let's see, where's the mayor? Mayor's not there yet. Go ahead. I got to put something up here real quick. This is more important than the mayor. Put up my mama birthday slide, the overlay. Happy birthday to to Reverend Walden. Happy birthday to my mama. You see this, mama? We can make the mayor wait because we need to acknowledge you. Go ahead, Trey.
Hey, happy birthday, Reverend Walden, Mama Walden. You are phenomenal. Always have been, and so grateful for your energy and presence in our community. Thank you so much for everything you do.
All right, let's bring in Mayor Harrell now. He's getting sworn in.
Prescribed in the Seattle City Charter.
Prescribed in the Seattle City Charter.
And the Seattle Municipal Code.
And the Seattle Municipal Code.
For the position of mayor.
For the position of mayor.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the State of Washington.
The Constitution of the State of Washington.
And the Charter and ordinances.
And the Charter and ordinances
of the City of Seattle.
Of the City of Seattle.
And that I will faithfully conduct myself.
And that I will faithfully conduct myself.
As mayor for the City of Seattle.
As mayor for the City of Seattle.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Jamie? Good morning, Seattle, and Happy New Year. Oh, call and response. So I'd like to acknowledge and begin by acknowledging members of my executive team who have answered the call of public service, lending their talent and their education and their lived experiences to help serve the residents of Seattle during one of its most challenging times. Now, as many of you know, because of COVID and in particular the Omicron variant, we decided not to have a large gathering as was originally intended. We had it written out. Our plan was for me to actually sing the national anthem a cappella. I was going to close with a rap. That was the plan, but after careful consideration, we decided that a more intimate environment would be more appropriate, and that way I wouldn't embarrass myself quite as much. So we know what's happened in the past. In the past, that we've heard tremendous speeches surrounded by family and loved ones and packed with city employees and hardworking community leaders and friends and folks from all walks of life. And we heard the energy and the promise that a new administration brings. But 2022 is not like past years. We continue to grapple with a stubborn pandemic that limits our ability to gather and celebrate. From March 11th, 2020, when the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic, we have lived in fear. Fear to be around others, fear to just shake someone's hand, fear that our streets are unsafe, fear that Seattle has been heading in the wrong direction, can't fix our problems, fear that our days in front of us hold less promise than those behind us. So today I address my remarks not to an assembled crowd, but directly to you, the people of Seattle, and to my family. Starting today, we will lead this city with an obsession with excellence and kindness, inclusion and hope. We will balance optimism and we will reject these attitudes of fear. Starting with our Harrell administration, we will rise together as a city. We'll start this journey together. Today, I'll discuss some ideas that how we will reinvigorate our public spaces and elevate our small businesses, how we will restore our culture and our arts and our nightlife. We will be intolerant, not of the people who are unhoused, but the conditions that cause them to be unhoused. We will come through this pandemic and take its lessons to help us improve healthcare, to improve our education outcomes, to address the disparities on a whole new level. Today begins our journey to bring new energy and new resources to address homelessness and public safety and gun violence and climate change. We will do this not by denigrating or shouting down those before us or around us. We'll listen, because there are so many who have given their lives or are giving their lives to do this work. So as your mayor, I will lead by example. I don't make excuses. We will implement, very simply, ideas that work. We'll be bold enough to innovate and take risks, and humble enough to embrace ideas put forth by others. I love Seattle. I love the people in it. I love the water and the air we breathe. I love the salmon we're trying to protect and the children we're trying to safeguard. I'm all in, ready to go to work. In fact, the entire Seattle team is ready. We are energized and we are focused and we are not afraid. I've spoken to all 10,000 plus city employees here to serve. Well, okay, I didn't really speak to them. I sent them an email. But in my first message, I tried to impress upon them that they are all ambassadors of our city. So grateful for their selfless work. I want them to know that they are a critical part of our success of Seattle's future. We all have a role to play. So I want to thank members of the City Council and members of our transition team who are joining virtually. I've had conversations with so many members of the council and the community. We are all excited to work together. Our transition committee, by the way, has done incredible work providing insight and ideas for us to implement on our administration. Here on the 7th floor, your Seattle executive team is the most diverse in our city's history, with unique lived experiences and professional experience. Our 3 deputy mayors are women of color, complemented by the city's first chief equity officer, herself an immigrant and woman of color. So be proud of that, Seattle. I hope that you come to know their stories of how they overcame race discrimination and gender discrimination and LGBTQ bigotry, and yet rose to the top level of leadership and educational attainment. These are your stories. These are our stories. And that goes with every member of the team standing with me today. Every single one of them overcame impediments to be the leaders that they are. So I'm very proud of these 9 individuals and the full roster of cabinet members we've hired or elevated. In fact, we have a few more we will announce next week we'll also be proud of. So under our administration, Seattle will be thriving. Let me repeat that, media. Seattle will be thriving. No more talk of this dying narrative. We will be a city renewed with optimism, a city that treats all people with dignity and appreciates the richness and diversity of our voices, the perspectives of all communities. Now, when I meet with businesses, small businesses, neighbors, and I listen to folks from Lake City to Columbia City, I see a Seattle that embraces not only our shared values, but a city of many religions and cultures and origin stories. But when we talk about being progressive or liberal or inclusive, I've yet to see the Seattle that I know it can be. That's just the truth. It's such an honor to continue this collective journey of defining who we are and what we can become. So you elected a little biracial Central area boy that attended your local public schools. For those who believe that every kid deserves an opportunity to lead the city that they love, I'm an example of that. But everyone will have an opportunity to help us. So for those who are still cynical or oppositional, I welcome the opportunity to have a dialogue with you. And I simply ask that Very simple request. Give us a chance. Give us a chance. So if there's one thing I believe in without pause, if there's one thing I want to leave is my legacy as the mayor of Seattle, is that we are one Seattle. See, in a one Seattle, we invite dialogue and learning, collaboration, thoughtful exchange. We unite our city around a one Seattle vision. And when we confront inequities in race and economic opportunity and environmental justice and housing affordability and equity, we build a one Seattle, one that they're not afraid to openly confront past evils like the Chinese Exclusion Act or Japanese incarceration, historic wrongs like redlining, and Black marginalization, and the current crises like homelessness and public safety, and the need for police reform. You see, in one Seattle, we honestly believe we are fighting for the same people in the city: working people, underrepresented people, people who want a living wage, people who just simply want better opportunities, people who want to be free from violence, people who want to save our planet. That's a one Seattle. So the people who are with me today and the people who are part of the Harrell cabinet, they would not take their jobs otherwise. We make real progress when we move toward healing and reparation and restoration, and we reject slogans and mean tweets, and we really commit to listening to one another and having a real dialogue. So here are a few elements of a Seattle One vision that I'd like to share with you. In one Seattle, I'll lead with this: we will have health care for all. Working closely with our Chief Equity Officer, Adia Memory, and our Director of Strategic Initiatives, Tim Burgess, we've already begun discussions with healthcare facilities and interested civic leaders and community clinics. We'll make sure every resident in our city not only has health care, but that they are healthy. You see, our Healthy Seattle is a goal of ensuring that we have the healthiest population in the nation. This is achievable. We've already begun these discussions with experts who not only know how to measure it, but how to build it. So we're exploring these new partnerships with healthcare leaders and community clinics and advocates in health equity, and we'll bring this vision to a reality. No one in this city should be without health coverage and healthy care. So in one Seattle, we all feel safe and supported. So that's why I will be working with safety leaders and justice leaders and law enforcement professionals committed to culture change and gun violence prevention, leaders who can reshape and redefine policing. See, a safe city employs the right kind of police officer and the right number of police officers. And we established at the same time an unarmed community-based responder who we desperately need to restore trust and to curb the street level activity, much of which is so undesirable. And we do this by listening to communities and neighborhoods. When they say they want to feel safe, we also know they mean safe without racial bias. So I'm asking each police officer to come out with me to help build trust with all Seattle residents, providing a beacon of hope. You know, if we do this right here in Seattle, the whole nation will watch us. I believe that. So much of this work will build on the decade-long leadership of Senior Deputy Mayor Monisha Harrell, a statewide champion recognized for her work in effective policing and de-escalation and criminal legal reforms, and helps restore lives and communities. This work she's been doing and making sure we have an effective police department. You see, in one Seattle, we don't allow people to live and suffer on our streets, our sidewalks. That's why I've created a dedicated deputy mayor in Tiffany, Washington, to discuss solely and focused on our homelessness response. With that kind of labor focus, we're going to step up our regional coordination, enhance our growing state partnerships. We will be showing visible progress here, and we know that that's exactly what you want to see under the Harrell administration. So we will be publishing a plan during our first quarter, and I look forward to working with the city council and the community leaders and all of the stakeholders in this regard. I've already had discussions with King County Executive Dow Constantine and Governor Jay Inslee, and I'm proud to call them my friends and colleagues in this work. So I will be issuing an executive order requiring a transparent plan and directing our utilities as an example to proactively provide us with information on utility shutoffs, which is actually an actual indicators when someone is suffering homelessness, vulnerability, or they have human service needs. So in One Seattle, we'll have affordable housing for all. We support our seniors and those on fixed income and working families and vulnerable people. That's why I'll be issuing an executive order demanding a full review of the approval processes, policies, and implementation to expedite construction of affordable housing. We'll fill in the gaps where zoning is already available for housing and construction density. And our Chief Operating Officer, Marco Lowe, who's not only has deep experience in City Hall, but actual experience in the housing industry, he will lead this critical effort with us. So as we embark upon a citywide master plan update that many of you are quite aware about, that the work we're doing, we'll look forward to opportunities to address every neighborhood, to address their shortage of quality housing at every income level. So in One Seattle, we will have parks in our open spaces, a new discussion about that as we combat climate change. We will be hiring a new parks director committed not only to restoring our world-class park system, but investing in underserved neighborhoods and expanding access and equity. So we will enhance our green spaces and improve tree canopy in urban neighborhoods most at risk right now of warmer temperatures. And we'll improve not only our sports and our play field. I was known to shoot a brick in the basketball courts as a kid in our sports centers. I made a few, missed more than I made. But we'll look at those facilities and look at them a little differently because we want to expand them to create a new dialogue in education and safety. So our Office of Sustainability and the Environment will be a national leader in coordinating a citywide climate policy plan and help us reaffirm our commitment to net zero emissions. So in One Seattle, every child from every neighborhood will be able to play in these kinds of facilities and receive the education future that they deserve. So that's why I've committed upon a new mentorship plan that we will build out in educational programs, many of which I champion on the city council, especially for Black and Brown youth, too often lacking in the service and support we want to see. So we'll look for new ways to expand affordable childcare and to fully recognize that the brain development from 0 to 5, how critical that is for healthy child development. I think about this every single day. You see that my grandkids are here every single day and they're nurturing, and I want every family to have that kind of facility and that kind of option in front of them for their children. So I'm excited to have new opportunities of partnership with our superintendent, our public school system. I've begun having a dialogue with our superintendent of public schools, Dr. Brent Jones, to look at more pathways and more emotional and behavioral support that, again, are so needed in these challenging times. So we'll explore a new use of our community centers and playfield. And again, not just places to build camaraderie, but how they will be assets for education and safety. Let's have a vision 0 for child and youth mortality in Seattle, particularly as a result of violence. I'm very excited about the discussions we're having and how under Deputy Mayor Kendi Yamaguchi, you'll see this new work in communities and our parks and community centers and our first responders. And we'll make sure that we optimize the use of our city assets. And we're not into sub-optimizing the assets that we have. So, as a kid, I used to walk to school. And there was this bully that wanted my coat. It's a nice coat. One thing about that bully, though, the bully couldn't outrun me. So he sort of knew my path to school, but he couldn't outrun me. So I kept my coat. And I think about that. But see, today, they didn't have iPhones and smartphones when I was young. But today, the stakes have changed. The kids are being threatened and beat up badly and sometimes killed for their possessions. The stakes have changed. We must be all in for protecting our kids. And so that's why you will see and feel this change that the Harrell administration will approve. Now, these goals I've described today are not mere aspirations. They are our mission as an administration. Much of this policy work will be led by our Director of Policy, Dan Eder. So under our administration, we're not going to play small ball. This is not the time for small ball. This is a time to be creative and bold. So we know we are a city that has grown up and thrived at the edges of innovation as a frontier port, gateway to the Pacific trade, a pioneer in aerospace and technology, home to global brands, a vibrant small business, a leader in arts and music and culture. We know that. But let me share something with you. There are 88 cities in this country named Washington. Yeah, you can look it up. There are 41 Springfields in this country. There are 35 cities named Franklin. There's quite literally only one Seattle. A Seattle built on the historic lands of the Duwamish. The Duwamish people named for its leader and connected to the air and the land and in ways we must cherish and acknowledge. Seattle is unique and truly great city, but I need to make this clear. One Seattle does not mean Seattle is number one. You see, our place and our pride and our greatness is not contingent upon the subordinate position of other cities or other places. It's measured by the examples we set, how we lift ourselves and lift others. In One Seattle, we put in the work, but we lead with humility and urgency and compassion. These are the virtues of a One Seattle. And so as I close and I'm physically looking at the press, I'm physically looking at the press. I want to recognize that you have a place in this too. The Journalist Creed, written by Walter Williams in 1914, describes that you only write that which you believe to be true in your heart. That you be tolerant, that you never become careless, that you remain self-controlled, that you're patient and respectful. Now, those are important words for all of us. So in One Seattle, we will replace this fear I opened with love. We're stronger when we work together. And I'll close with that and say, thank you, Seattle, for giving this little boy from the Central District this chance to lead this city. Thank you for all of this opportunity, and we're ready to get started. And with that, we will field a few questions. I'm going to ask Jamie Housen stand with the crew here. He's I'm told never to say jokes about my close friend Jamie Housen, but sometimes it's just irresistible. When you love someone like this, the jokes just naturally come out. So I apologize for that. Thank you very, very much, and thank you for joining us virtually, community. Questions, please. No questions. Have a great day, everybody.
So we'll take the first question was submitted online by Omari Salisbury with Converge Community here. Mayor Harrell, you were able to rally support from Seattle's Black community, many of whom voted for more liberal candidates in other races, but specifically voted for you because the perception of you would best serve the interests of the Black community. What are your specific plans to address issues such as economic opportunity, access to education, and home ownership to offset gentrification and displacement in the Black community?
Yes, thank you, Omar, for that question. And I think Omar actually knows the answer, but has given me an opportunity to display the answers that I was elected on actually during the campaign. Thank you, Omari. So precisely why we decided to create a cabinet level position in Chief Equity Officer Adia Memory, because we want to operationalize equity. And by that, I mean, we've done a great job of teaching about our race and social justice initiatives, but now we want to make sure that we put structure around working with small BIPOC businesses as an example. That when we talk about creating a new department, we're talking about recruiting from our communities, many of whom are culturally competent and ready to protect their own communities. So you're going to see new outreach strategies, and most importantly, you're going to see measurement. How well are we working with BIPOC businesses and giving them business opportunities? How well are we introducing small businesses to large businesses? How well are we measuring their economic prosperity? And that is coupled with the education policies that we're going to implement. I personally believe that education is one of the biggest equity drivers in this city. So I want to make sure, and education, not just formal education, but often informal education. We have jobs out there in the port and maritime industry, many of which pay six-figure income. So how can I make sure that our opportunities, particularly the African American community, have access to these opportunities? How well do they get access to grants for their education? So we recognize that when we look at the 400 years of race discrimination in this country that have been perpetuated by the original sin of slavery, that we see actual remnants of this in day-to-day lives. Some are naked to the eye. Some we don't see. Some are institutional in nature. So under our work with Chief Equity Officer Adi Memory, we're going to expose these, have an open dialogue, and measure the progress we do. So you're going to see tangible results, new kinds of relationships, working with groups like the ethnic media and some of the storytellers and what we call the griot tradition. We're going to bring these stories to life because I believe every opportunity we have to unify this city. Every opportunity we have to learn from one another, not just for the African American community, but for any culture out there. Every opportunity we have from learning from one another gives us the opportunity to love one another, to have a dialogue with one another. So Omari, I look forward to working with you, my brother, and I got to tell you, you're going to be working closely with me on some of this stuff. So keep your powder dry and stop asking me these tough questions.
Any questions in the room? Matt?
Mr. Mayor, Police Chief, can you give me a status on what you plan to do with that key position?
Yes, and I got to tell you, that's the first time someone called me Mr. Mayor. Matt, thank you for that. It feels sort of good. I think I could wear this job for a while. So here's the situation with Chief Diaz, someone that I've known for decades, someone that I respect, that I believe that I have to give everyone an opportunity to show some brilliance, show some talent. So we're having discussions right now. He does not know what it looks like to work for a mayor like me. I have to give him that opportunity. So we're having discussions. He knows that some people have called for a national search, but I start right here and I have to give him real measurement criteria by which I could see what he's doing. So I can't give you a specific deadline on he's an interim, when we may lift the interim or do a national search. It's my second day in office, by the way. So we're having those discussions. I want Chief Diaz to know that you'll hear me in a lot of situations where that I'm going to try to bring out the best in everyone. So I can't give a specific deadline, but we'll be making some decisions here in the first quarter. I guess that would be a deadline for you. So you'll see some decisions there. I think Chris had a question.
Yeah, Mayor, I was hoping you could elaborate on what you talked about off the top with this healthcare idea, healthcare for all. What exactly does that mean and what does that look like?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. So this is a game changer that many of you, probably most people in here have healthcare, but you probably don't know who does not. So that's where we start off with what problem we're trying to solve. And not only just the ability to get treated, but the ability to have some preventative care. And some of this could even be mental health care. We all know that housing and housing security or insecurity is a component of one's health. So what it's going to look like is community leaders coming together, publishing a plan on who is unhealthy or who does not have health care. And then you're going to see, using a consortium of clinics and our hospital structure and the philanthropic community, a system by which we can start measuring again. Measuring our health is critical, and there are ways to do that. Again, we've had some discussions on what that looks like. And so you're going to see a plan here, hopefully within a few months. The skeleton, we actually have, well, I hate to put anyone on the spot, but I'm not afraid to. You're going to see, again, Director of Strategic Initiatives, Tim Burgess, and Chief Equity Officer, Adi Memory, working together to publish something for you to see, to answer your question directly, what this will look like and where we will go. It's going to take a little time to build. And the leaders in this industry, who I will unname right now, because I didn't have permission to disclose their names, have said, these champions have said, we will be the healthiest city in this country, and we'll measure that. So more to come. And we have a team behind me that's working on this diligently.
So another online question from Vice. Where does Mayor Harrell see Seattle's role in leading the charge in pushing progressive policies on the local level, especially with some of the national frustration with younger people around the current federal agenda?
So let's talk about this term progressive for a moment. This is where some people in this room cringe when I start riffing these responses, and I know who they are. That I'm just sometimes not sure what that means, because in our candidacy, we had probably the most racially diverse, socioeconomic diverse, culturally diverse, and religious diverse volunteer base and campaigns that this city has ever seen. Okay. So when we talk about the progressive agenda, I ran on a progressive agenda. When you start talking about health care for all, when you start talking about building a progress, an opportunity window for everyone to succeed, that is progressive policy at its fullest. When you start looking at this team behind me, and yeah, I got to tell you, it's nice having them behind me, because they're usually bossing me around and I'm listening to them. They get together and give me a few orders. This is what progressive policy looks like. So to answer the question directly, as I am known to do, we will advance a progressive policy. We've already started. And these ideas that I talked about, building another kind of response unit, an unarmed response unit, that is what progressive policy is all about. When we start looking at in Olympia, the tax structure, which we all can admit is extremely regressive. And we know that the wealth experienced by large corporations in a city where people cannot afford to live in their homes and are intense, we know that that is the opposite of having a progressive city. So my plea to those who self-proclaim to be the progressives, give us a chance and let's work together, because I look forward to it. I saw a question in the back.
Thank you very much. Mayor Harrell, I know that there are a number of crises that you've addressed, but I want to go back to COVID and Omicron and what you can say to city residents, in particular parents. You see all of these people waiting in line trying to get tests. We don't have enough tests that are out there, and parents are struggling with, what do I do? Do I send my kid back to school? What would you say with regard to what you do about getting more tests here, and what sort of response the city is preparing for right now with regard to COVID priority?
Sure. So, and I want to thank Deputy Mayor Manisha Harrell for the last several weeks. I don't think she's missed one briefing on making sure we're getting the real data that's we're confronted with particularly with the Omicron virus, getting the science and the data that matters most. So number one is, I'm conservative in this respect, and I have to let the data and the science govern every decision that we'll make coming out of our administration. I am very proud that, for example, our vaccination rates are in the mid 80s, one of the highest in the country. And many people now who have gotten one shot, one vaccination, the numbers would suggest that in a few weeks we'll be in the mid 90s in terms of vaccination rates. So following the governor's lead, who again I think have done an outstanding job in leading the state, and under the county's lead, under Dow Constantine, who I think has done an outstanding job, I will partner with them, and we're having these discussions. And I want to thank Mayor Durkin. I want to thank Mayor Durkin and her administration for leading the way in this work. And if I didn't make those in my opening remarks, I want to apologize for the city employees and her leadership and her administration's leadership on leading the way. So I will even have conversations with them. They've assured me they're only a call away. So you're going to see some good policy work and some good conditions. My first charter responsibility is to protect the health and welfare of the city. So our vaccination rates, our COVID testing facilities, we'll do an inventory on what we're doing and what we have to improve. We can do better. I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, and when I talked to President Biden and Vice President Harris and our housing director, Marcia Fudge, and our transportation director, Buttigieg, said his name right sometime. I did mispronounce it right in front of him, which was quite embarrassing, they know that we are trying to lead the way. And what I told them under the Build Back Better scenario is that we need resources. And so we're going to make sure we get the resources. Again, I sort of come into these discussions not with just a joke ready, which always is a good icebreaker, but letting them know that we need the investments here. We need the resources here. So I'll be going back in a few weeks having these discussions. But again, I got to protect people. And so we hope to have availability on the sites. Not to share too much information, but I believe my granddaughters were tested this morning just to make sure that, Hey, do I get any credibility for having the cutest granddaughters in the city here, by the way? But my goodness, here. But we'll make sure we have all of the facilities available as best we could.
So it's the last online question, and we'll take one more question from the room if it's there. Hannah Krieg asks, sort of on the same line, what, in the face of Omicron, what health metrics you're looking at with regard to the eviction moratorium and hazard pay?
Yeah. So the eviction moratorium expires, I believe, on the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So number one, our policies, whether we extend it or not, let me be clear, we'll announce that decision in due time. But let me be clear on what we're trying to achieve. First of all, we don't want anyone to be homeless because they're getting evicted and because COVID has put them in that kind of situation. So our policies will lead with that, whether we extend it or not. I'm not in a position to say clearly a yes or no, because it's for us, for the Harrell administration, it's not a yes or no. We also realize that many of the small landlords that own one or two places, that they are at the risk of losing their place as well. Many of them have mortgages on taxes and insurance, and if we lose that rental inventory, there goes another house that perhaps can be rehabilitated and not affordable again. And so we're going to try to balance the situation and make sure that we come up with a strong policy that protects those most vulnerable from homelessness. That's why my executive order on utility shutoffs becomes critical. So we're going to make sure that the benefit we have is to look back and see how well it worked, how the moratorium worked. So we're going to look at that. In a perfect world, I would have had more than a week to do this work, but that's okay. As I said earlier, we don't make excuses. So you're going to see an announcement here in the next week as we look at the data and see how we can improve it to make sure we protect vulnerable residents and even vulnerable landlords, many of whom we heard from who are at the risk of losing the house that they was a rental income, maybe perhaps a unit they bought and rented it out. So our policy will be announced in about a week.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, how much detail can we expect from your plan in the first quarter on addressing homelessness? And when will people begin noticing a difference, not only in clearing public spaces, but in truly getting help to those who need it?
Yes. So the level, I want to make it clear, and that's a great question. The level of detail hopefully would be such that you have a feel and a means by which you can measure what the heck we are doing. And it will morph into a more detailed plan as we develop it. So I need to make that clear, that what you have right now is not an articulable plan. You can't see the strategy that we're trying to implement. And I have to make it clear, as soon as you start talking about that, some people are hearing something differently. Oh, we're just going to sweep everyone off the sidewalks. No, we want to show what we have right now. Where are people living, right? We have the data. We're just not making it as public as we want to. So you're going to see a level of detail by which you feel as though you can measure how we're doing. Number one, there was a second component of the question that escapes me that I wanted to say something.
When people might begin noticing a difference?
Oh, thank you. So I'm not going to take credit for this because I didn't do this, what I'm about to say. But you did see that I think under our campaign, we tried to change the narrative here, that I constantly talk about situations at Green Lake or Broadview Thompson Elementary School, and situations that I thought were intolerable. And I think that the Durkin administration, those trying to house people, you saw some renewed energy. Again, I'm not taking credit for it that you saw that. So I think that even quite candidly, the number of encampments you saw around City Hall, I'm passionate about getting people housing. So I think you're going to see and Deputy Mayor Tiffany Washington, I say this with love and fondness and respect for my deputy mayor, as she laughs behind me, she's going to be measured by that. She knows, she shares the same passion and commitment. So we talked about real progress in a short time. So we're meeting feverishly on that. And I think that you'll see some change here in the very near future. But one thing I want to get off to on the right foot, that I'm not going to say something that's not going to get done. So I'm not going to say, by Friday of this week, everyone's going to say, voila, he did it in 3 days. But I will guarantee you that you will see people housed here very shortly. So again, that's why we already started, even before I took my oath of office, conversation with Dow Constantine and Jay Inslee on the resources we need. So you'll see real progress. And I think that the city is already starting to see the momentum that we're bringing. So I'll leave it there.
All right, that concludes the swearing-in ceremony.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, Trey Holiday, pretty lengthy there, man. 45 minutes. Mayor Harrell with his first media availability there, and we'll let you grab that over there, Salman. What are your thoughts?
Well, I gotta say, one of the things that I really appreciated about him coming out really strong around this concept of One Seattle. This is something that we've been talking about here on the Morning Update show for quite some time around how the city feels so divided. We saw it with, the Trump administration federally. We saw it with that insurrection. It's almost a year, of the anniversary of it. We've just seen such a large division. And I know we talked specifically for Mayor Durkin's administration on how to bring everyone together under one umbrella. So I really appreciate this idea of One Seattle, of people leading with compassion and caring for others and finding the common ground to really be able to stand on that, build new policies and strategies around that, and caring for the people here of Seattle. And I will say, because I mentioned this yesterday, that Mayor Harrell actually has an opportunity to lead the nation with some innovative approaches. And him saying that today about how he went directly to, King County Executive Dale Constantine and the governor, Jay Inslee, to say, we need to be leading the nation with regard to how we're dealing with homelessness and how we're dealing with crisis around public safety. These are some of the things that we talk about here often. So, again, he's right. We got to give him a chance to do what he said he was going to do. And it's going to be interesting to see how all of his plans really unfold.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. He laid out some pretty big ideas there. I'm surprised. No, we were surprised. We were watching here. I didn't know, because lots of people emailed in questions. So I'm glad that you got to our question. Starting in our neighborhood first, right? And we'll talk about the larger issues here in the city, is that, this is a great opportunity for Mayor Harrell to reverse the trend line that's been coming out of City Hall and also the State House in Olympia when it comes to Black people here in the city of Seattle and in the region. So hopefully Mayor Harrell will draw that line in the sand and say, you know what, this starts right here. And when we talked about yesterday, I'll talk about again today, is that big three. It's that income gap. It's the massive income gap what Black people earn in this city. It's home ownership, which is generational wealth, and it's the education gap, right? These are things that are also very measurable. And what we've seen here in the city of Seattle, and it's funny because people talk about progressive or liberal or whatever, anything you want to call it, Black folks have been going like this. So if you call yourself a progressive, a liberal, whoever you supported in City Hall, the end result, at least for us in our community, is a rapid decline. And also we've seen massive gentrification and displacement. So, it'll be interesting for me to see what tangible things happen on the ground in our community. This gives Mayor Harrell an opportunity to turn those trend lines around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, part of what we just saw there was him addressing it a little bit, even talking about, the ideas of repairing those past harms, reparations that are necessary because of, the great atrocity of the enslaved movement and the enslaved times that our country has dealt with. It's never really been repaired in any real way. And yet the damages are seen. I appreciated how he also said there's damages that people cannot see. And this is when we talk about people's lived experience, that, it's not something that is always so tangible for you to understand, because there's data that talks about the decline in home ownership, that talks about this income gap. All of those things are verified by data, but there are other things that people end up dealing with because of built-in racism, built-in discrimination. And those things really are, again, byproducts of the enslaved movement. And so him even addressing that, you're right. When it comes to Black people in this city, there's a real opportunity here. Oh, and we'll see how he does.
Also has a great opportunity to become more proactive around these issues, especially around violence that's impacting not only our community, but other communities in the city. You know, so many of our young people dying here in the city of Seattle. And there were some initiatives that we talked about that Mayor Durkin, at the end of her administration, trying to reach out to different people whose voices haven't been heard. We've heard Council Member Morales being more vocal about what's going on there in District 2. But I think that if Mayor Harrell, you know, he gives the vibe of the coach, you know what I'm saying, or everybody's in the huddle, the GO team. A great place for him to GO team is around the whole city council. Get the whole city council on board, on message. How do we really attack this issue of gun violence that's happening in our city? And yes, it impacts us, and we talk about that, disproportionately impacts our community, but other communities here in the city. And to this point, the city council has not all been on the same message. Now, when we talk about COVID, hey, you get all city council members lined up all the way from Inslee down to the dog catcher. They're all on the same message around COVID. But when it comes to gun violence disruption in our city of Seattle, then there's a lot of deafening silence that's coming out of City Hall. So hopefully Mayor Harrell can press a reset over there. He said he's had great conversations with city council. Hopefully he can press a reset button there and get the whole council on board and say that, you know what, this is not okay in our city, and we are going to do what we need to do to disrupt gun violence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that I think is a really great opportunity for Mayor Harrell here with regard to how he's going to work closely with the city council and ensure that there is a unified approach, a unified strategy. I think one of the things that we really actually saw that was a misnomer was, you know, city council, you know, going against Mayor Durkin's administration, just this back and forth. And oftentimes we talked about it blatantly, how that was really a negative thing for all of the citizens to have to deal with, particularly in specific communities. When we talk about the Black community, you know, pinning communities up against each other in that regard. So the ideas that now Mayor Harrell saying, look, I've had conversations with city council, it's going to be important to make sure that there's a unified message coming from the top. And I think that you're absolutely right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a message of safety for the citizens of the Emerald City. How could we not have a unified voice around that? You know, and we're talking about young people and neighborhoods impacted and some everything else. You know, what I said, what it was interesting there as well, I wrote down the timestamp, is when he started talking about this One Seattle healthcare, you know, for everybody in the city. If there is a city that could pull that off, Seattle's probably the city that could do that, to be honest with you. But I mean, not a lot of details there, but the concept and idea of it sounds good. We know a lot of people who don't have health care.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just throw this out there. I ain't had no real health care until January 1st. Wow. And you know, that's one of the main reasons when we talk about like all these injuries sustained and everything else. Because man, when you got the lowest health care, man, they send you home, dog. You ain't getting no ultrasound. They get, you know what I'm saying? You're not getting none of the stuff you need, and that because it's minimal. And so I really know what that is like in real life. Now that I actually got like some real help, sure, this is gonna be a good year for me. But you know, I just talked about addressing that. And one thing he did say is like, most of you people here in this room have health care. You might not know all the people who don't.
Yeah, you know, I think that was another touching moment for me, to be honest. And I understand that completely. You know, before I was able to, you know, get new positions, I've been there too myself. And there was times where I needed specific things and just had to wait. There was no way that I could pay for it out of pocket. And the idea is that sometimes you don't really understand these the nuances of these kinds of situations or lived experiences until you're going through them is real. And so him pointing that out, that you may not know who doesn't, is a really key indicator of, again, how he's going to be leading with what he talked about, compassion, which I think is so key to any mayor in any city. And particularly now, while we're all still dealing with this pandemic, you know, Omicron variant, you had the Delta variant, you know, you got a lot of people sick. Right now it's even the flu season. So there's a huge mix of reasons why people are getting sick. And the idea is that everybody in the city of Seattle, through Mayor Harrell's administration, will one day have health care and health coverage that is going to protect them and keep them safe and keep them healthy. That is key, and I think it's a golden standard, honestly. And he talked about literally being the leader in the healthiest city in the nation. That's something that's, powerful. I know it's going to take a lot of work.
Right. Something else they mentioned there was a question from one of the members of the media was around Chief Diaz and what his plans are for the police chief. Of course, Mayor Harrell said he's only been on the job for a few days and wants to be able to give Chief Diaz some measurable things to measure his progress in the job as chief. Chief Diaz has made it known that he wants the job of chief. And one of the things, when people talk about a national search, right, when they're like, okay, there needs to be a national search, one of the reasons why is that in certain police departments, they just need a clean house. And so sometimes when people are promoted from within, there's things that are just ingrained in the culture. And so that's when they talk about a national search, because basically everybody gets replaced, all the assistant chiefs, the command staff, and everything else. Chief Diaz, for the most part, people, he's been in the community for a long time. A lot of the anti-violence initiatives in South Seattle, those are some of the things that he spearheaded and everything else. But I mean, time is going to tell here with Chief Diaz. I know that there is a lot of pressure for them to just bring in a new chief with a new command staff. But he said that he's leaving space for Chief Diaz.
Yeah, I mean, he also talked about the ideas around how to safely do police reform. And I think that this is something that is really, it's a key indicator. I mean, we even saw, for those of you who are maybe watching Seattle Channel before, there was quotes with people still talking about how defunding the police was a surefire way to never get elected. So the ideas around the polarizing discussion and the discourse that's happening at a national level with regard to police reform is still very new for some folks. And it's a touchy subject. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Chief Diaz rises to the occasion now and the opportunity to showcase his impact on the entire police department for Seattle, but also, again, bringing that community experience and the compassion that he's shown to bear, because it's going to be necessary.
Well, Harrell said something interesting there. He said that he wants a police force with the right kind of police and the right number of officers. And we'll see if that's a balance that he's able to attain here in the city. It's a heavy lift. It's a lot going on over there. One other thing as well was the mention of childhood development. I didn't hear him mention Director Chappelle by name, but we've been keeping our eye on Deal for a long time, the Department of Early Education Learning, and what Director Chappelle has been doing over there, and the investment. And we saw a big investment under Mayor Durkin. I give some credit here under Mayor Durkin with early childhood and as well with Seattle Promise. So I heard we heard Mayor Harrell there talk about, hey, I see my grandchildren. It's very important, the development from 0 to 5. So let's see, let's see him literally put his money where his mouth is there, and see also how can we uplift some of the great things that are happening over there at Deal. I mean, when you talk about 1,000 students now in Seattle Promise program, how can we get it to 2,000?
Yeah, some of this stuff that has already been, the foundation's been laid. How do we scale it up? And I always say this too, when we're talking about Seattle, but I always think when you have these aspirations for Seattle to be a leader in the nation, that's also a leader in the state. So how are other cities going to be able to work alongside some of the amazing, leaders in Seattle that are spearheading a lot of this progressive new policy, new legislation, new programs, and really get it scaled up throughout the state? I think is really important. And again, when you have a heavy job, but also when you talk about being a leader, how is that leadership really showcasing throughout the state? I think that's a key thing as well.
Yeah, it was somebody emailed in a question. I think it was talking about progressive and progressive movement, and Mayor Harrell said that he is a progressive and that his cabinet represents progressive values. But the one thing that he said was, give me a chance.
Yeah.
That's all anybody could ask for. It was duly, one election that there's no controversy about, luckily here in the state of Washington, is duly elected. So, Mayor Harrell was duly elected by the people here. He's asking people to give him a chance to see what he's going to do. And giving a chance and holding accountable are synonymous. You know what I'm saying? Like giving a chance. And the thing is that giving a chance doesn't mean that you remove the guardrails.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean, but it does mean you give someone a fair opportunity to try to move things forward. But, you know, giving a chance and accountability, they go hand in hand. And I say that because, you know, year after year and decade after decade, we've been disappointed time and again. When I say we, it's particularly a Black community here in Seattle, by elected officials. I mean, it goes back decades after decades after decades. And, you know, it's important now more than ever that we hold people accountable. And, you know, that doesn't, even when we agree with people, or especially if we disagree, either way, even in agreeing, it's like, what's the accountability of it? You know, what are our metrics? What are we measuring here? How are we going to measure success? So, you know, I'm here for the details.
Yeah. You know, I gotta say too, as a member of the media, as we are, I mean, he talked directly about media being an important factor in how he wants to roll out some of these things around storytellers, the original griot. I love that concept because as a storyteller myself, I do think it's important when we talk about really showcasing the resilience of us as a city, the resilience of the people and the leaders here. That is all about being able to showcase it through this kind of medium. You know, media is key to that. And I like that he put that in there. You know what I mean? So we'll see how, you know, intentional he's going to be about connecting with media to ensure that the right story of Seattle is coming out to the masses, to the rest of the nation, and also, again, throughout our state, really resonating with other cities.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm glad that we had that last opportunity here to talk to Mayor Durkin, because one of the very important questions I asked Mayor Durkin is like, what have you done specifically for our community so we can benchmark that for the incoming mayor? If people don't know, how do we gauge any of the success? And that's what Mayor Durkin talked about: 1,000 kids in the Seattle Promise, the investment in the deal, the investment into housing, including like Africa Town Plaza, First AME, Mount Zion has, you know, a fun. There's a lot of different housing projects or programs that are going on through the Office of Housing. So all these different things. So we have some benchmarks across, and as far as community outreach and things like that, we need to make sure that the needle goes up. You know, we need to make sure, and, you know, we'll take Mayor Harrell at his word. He said he wants to move it up. You know, I mean, it's not in his best interest not to, but at least we have a benchmark. We know, okay, this is how much Mayor Durkin invested in housing for, you know, for Black community. This is how much Mayor Durkin invested in education. This is, you know, how much Mayor Durkin invested in access. And we can see those actual dollars there. They said that in a city with anything else, your budget is a representation of your values. So it'll be interesting here, you know, through Mayor Harrell's tenure here, and as well as the council members, to see where their values are at.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm looking forward to it all because I really appreciate being bold. I think right now is a time for bold change, for bold action, for innovation, for new programs and policies. And, you know, he's done already a job of making sure that certain people are in place. And he's talking about how they're going to be measured and how they're going to, you know, their, you know, success is going to be measured, so we can all be a part of that and understand it. And honestly, I think that's the at least the right foot to go on. So you're right. We'll see.
All right. I know you got to get out of here, huh?
Yeah.
Can you give me 90 seconds?
I got you.
All right. So, you know, it's still my mama. You know, this is okay. Like, the mayor did his presser and everything. But the biggest news today is my mama's birthday. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it was an interesting year last year. And we know this incident that happened even right down here. And, you know, my mama, her whole life, had been telling me to lead with love. Don't be a hater. Even before the term hater came into fashion, she said, don't be a hater. This is way back. We're going to go on the time machine here. This is back in September of 2020 when we were at the Liberty Bank building, and my mama was talking about how it's important to love and not hate.
But through all of that, I'm going to keep my kind of humanity. I will never, ever, ever go down to the level of the enemy or the people who hate me. Never.
Amen.
I will never, ever, ever crawl on my belly. I will never, ever treat somebody the way they've treated me. It's my principle, it's my character, and it's my training. My grandmother taught me to never be a hater. Best thing she ever taught me. Her first husband got lynched by some white people. But she told me, you'll never be a hater. I walk through life, I will never waste my time hating white people. Never. And I don't care what happens, I will never go there. Never.
You know, it's I think a lot of people might get it honest. To see why I get it honest, there's a lot of people who saw a lot of this footage and like, man, how come you're not more vicious and you're not more this, you're not more that? And I tell them, man, like, hate don't dwell in my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like, I make my moves, believe me, but you know, it's not hate that gets me out of the bed every morning. It's you know.
For me, it's love. What gets me out of bed every morning is the little children. You know that we don't see them at the bus stop right now, but we would. They got bright eyes. They got bright eyes. I work for the children because you know what? They are so idealistic.
What an amazing moment. And again, happy birthday, Reverend Walden. You know, that message resonates no matter how old it is, how old it gets. The ideas around so much of the resilience that we have seen in Black community is embedded in that message right there. I think many people were raised to not extend that same hate that was given to them, but to always move in love. And when I think about all of these amazing people right here in our backdrop in the studio, I'm always reminded when I think about their resilience, it's because they move with love from the gate. And it's a beautiful message always from your mom.
That's right. Happy birthday, mama.
Happy birthday. We love you so much.
Oh, man. Trey Holiday, I know we're over time, man. You got somewhere to be. Any last words before we get out of here?
Always for me, just as Reverend Walden has done with, you know, her entire career, Mothers for Police Accountability, everything that she has given to community, find a way to be a part of an amazing solution. We heard from Mayor Harrell today how he's going to be a part of setting amazing solutions and also setting leaders in place to do so. You guys be inspired and also become a part of some amazing solutions.
All right, good stuff, man. I'm telling you, we got a big news week here. It's gonna be a lot of news tomorrow, but also tomorrow, real quick. So we're joined by our buddy Ike Everard. Ike on the mic is gonna be here with us, and then man, Mike Davis from the South Seattle Emerald will be joining us, and then we're gonna be talking about. I'll wait till tomorrow. Yeah. We'll give everybody a surprise. Man, thanks for everybody for joining us. I know that the presser took the majority of our time, so we got a lot of good stuff to get to tomorrow. On that note, want to remind you, go forward in your purpose. Go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.